Hello everyone, this is Fish and Rice Stories from Japan. I'm Toby.
I'm Andre.
And today we are blessed with a new guest on the podcast, Slava. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We want to talk a lot with you today about how you started the company that you're now the CEO of, together with your other co-founders. But first, could you maybe introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners?
Sure. My name is Slava. I've been living in Japan for almost 18 years now. At the moment, I'm one of the co-owners and CEOs of the company named ZenGroup. We have a couple brands like Zen Market, Zen Plus, Zen Pop.
Quite a lot of brands today. 18 years, that's quite a long time. Could you tell us maybe what you were doing before you came and what brought you all the way from Ukraine to Japan?
Yeah, sure. It feels like more than a half of my life I've been staying here, especially if you talk about this conscious part of your life. So my major in university was Japanese language. Okay. So it was kind of natural for me to, after I graduated university in Kiev, I come here and do my studies here. I entered Tokyo University. I've spent quite a lot of time there, first as a research student and then as a postgraduate student, master degree and then PhD here.
Was Tokyo your first experience in Japan, or have you been elsewhere before going to Tokyo University?
No, it was actually my second time. So the first time I was on my third year, and then I came here just for 1 year to kind of experience Japan. And back then I was in a small town called Toyama.
Okay.
It's close to kind of Japan Sea.
In the region of near Niigata, where it's famous for a lot of snow. Isn't it in Toyama that they have the highway with the big snow walls?
It is. Yeah, it's 40 meters high or something. It opens in May, and you can just go by bus, and it's just snow on the left, snow on the right. Yeah, it's kind of small, but I kind of like it because, Japan is a completely new country, a lot of new experience, and if you go to a place like Tokyo, you might just get lost there. Yeah. So I kind of think that when you go to Japan, and you want to kind of experience real Japan, going to kind of smaller place is one of the options.
On your stay in Toyama, was there maybe some experience that really affected you personally or professionally that made you really decide, this is where I want to come back, I want to kind of settle here? Or?
Yeah, basically everyone who comes to Japan for the first time is loves Japan very much. And I was getting some small allowance from Japanese government, so I could pay for my rent. And I was a student, I had a lot of kind of free time.
Yeah,
I learned, but also kind of had a lot of fun. But speaking about culture experience, basically, when I went to university back in Ukraine, I was actually thinking of going to learn French or something, because my one of the main major in my high school was French. But then there was also option to go for Japanese, and back then we were. Back then in my generation, it was less about anime or manga. It was more about Japanese literature and Japanese martial arts thing, or
more
also
traditional
Japanese
cultural
part,
aspect of Japan.
So I kind of had experience of all of it. I went to Tokyo University to study literature and did it for a very long time. And I also did martial arts when I was in Toyama University. So that was actually one of the first experience in Japan that kind of had a lot of influence on me. Because it's not just martial art, it's kind of a place where you learn about society, especially it works also for Japanese people, there's a place where you get ready or prepared for the life of a grown up, they call it shakaijin. So when you first start working for the company, and when you have a salary, and when you're independent, they call it I don't know how it should be translated, but it's called shakaijin, a social person.
Yeah, society person.
Society person, yeah. So it's not just about like, training and doing martial arts. I did Aikido, but it's also like in a social life within that club. It's pretty strict. It was everything that I imagined about like Japanese kind of martial clubs and even more, because there's like strict hierarchy and you learn a lot of stuff of like how you should communicate, and it's really hard to learn while you are still in university. I mean, like back in Ukraine or something. It's completely different how you talk to senpai, how you like do some sort of relationship, what's allowed, what's not, and it's not just about the dojo, the place you learn the martial art. It's all about like how you behave, for example, during like parties, right?
Okay.
So there's like, for example, like a teacher sensei, and like first year students should go and make kanpai, and you should like be really fast, and you should be in dogeza, and like all these things that you should be.
Well, if we think about the etymology of a lot of martial arts disciplines like judo, you mentioned aikido, it's always with the word do, which means the way, right? So it's a way of life for many Japanese, maybe, and something that they want to transmit in the tradition. Yeah,
I mean, they also say that like there are some like working places that remind you of this kind of bukatsu or martial art club, and it's considered not very good because the hierarchy is too strict. But like back then, for me, like for a foreigner, it was really good to understand this part of Japan. We kind of, I mean, sometimes it was really harsh. Like
I can imagine. Yes.
I mean, in winter, you kind just basically open all the windows, and in Toyama, it's pretty cold. It's like -5, sometimes -10, and the snow would just be inside the dojo.
And coastal sea wind.
And they, for sometimes you'll have something called like kangeiko. It's like cold lesson training.
Okay.
They would just come like 6 a.m. or something like that, like really cold. You're doing training
barefoot.
Yeah, barefoot. Or like in August when it gets really hot, you kind of do some things like 500 times, 1,000 times, and like
just keep practicing.
I mean, we had people kind of just taken by ambulance because it was
really. Yeah. Oh wow!
It was too
pushing
harsh.
To the extreme. It's like the stereotype of the movie Karate Kid, maybe, where they just the sensei keeps pushing the student further and further until.
What was fascinating also, that's like the teacher sensei would probably see him like once in a month or so. So everything in the club was run just by students, and that was kind of really interesting experience, because once you become second year student, you have a lot of responsibilities of kind of teaching the first year student. Like they have this ideas like senpai, kohai, someone who's elder, younger. And then you become a 30-year student, and you basically 30-year students were running the place. They were doing everything and like organizing big parties, big events, going for some exchange to other universities, all these trips, all this kind of everything. And it was like really good because people learn how to be responsible.
That's a very important skill to learn, like from a very younger age, I think.
I've been doing karate in Ukraine, and it was just listening those experiences. It was very similar, apart from like ambulance part. Probably in Ukraine, it was not that harsh. They were not pushing that hard. But a lot of experiences.
And so this experience with martial arts is kind of really what shaped you to come back and pursue further studies in Tokyo.
Yeah, I was not still finished in my university in Ukraine, so I had to go back and to graduate. I really liked my stay in Japan that year, not just Aikido part, but also, meeting a lot of people. And that was the first time basically I got outside my own country.
Yes. Life-changing experience.
Yeah, life-changing experience. So, yeah.
When you you mentioned that you were studying literature for a very long time. Now, it's a very maybe intellectual field where you might do a lot of research and lose yourself in a lot of books and think about meanings behind words. What led you from these kind of more literary studies to become an entrepreneur while you were still a student?
Like you said, doing literature, I mean, it's hard to transpose it into some numbers, right? I mean, there's literature theories, a lot of them, there's history, and but still, it's not something that you can really touch. It's not something that you can count. And I really like that, but at some point of time, I also felt like doing something that could bring me visible results.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I was also doing just a bit of programming, and I really liked, how you put things together, some algorithm, and you get a result. So I kind of missed that part too.
Creating systems,
seeing how they work, adjusting, changing, then checking again. So yeah, this part was missing from my life. And after being more than, I guess, 10 years in this academia, I decided that it would be good to change the angle and do something different. Though I really missed the university times. I mean, a lot of like really smart people around me. It was a really good experience.
What was maybe one of the first business ideas that you tried out when you were here in Japan?
ZenGroup or Zen Market was not the first one. While we still were students, we tried a couple of things while being in university. We did, naturally, when you can speak some language, you ask to translate stuff like arubaito, they call it, part-time work. So that led us to organizing a small like translation company together with our Japanese partner.
Was this a translation from which language to which language?
It was mainly like Ukrainian, Russian, and Japanese agency. And so we also worked on online dictionary, Ukrainian and Russian to Japanese.
That must have been quite rare before you started this.
That was rare. We back then there were no too many dictionaries, especially Ukrainian one. And like Google Translate was not yet a thing. Just started. So it felt, we felt that we had an idea that could be useful. So we worked a lot on that couple of years. We tried to monetize that, but we had like 50 paid users or something. But that was not enough. It was kind of subscription model, was not sufficient. So we decided, okay, we're just going to open it for everyone and do something else. Yeah, after that, we did a couple other things. We tried to introduce this foreign captioned culture. We'd have a black frame and a picture inside it, and just write some funny caption or something.
Kind of memes in a way.
Kind of memes in a way back then, yeah, because it was a thing back then in my country, and we tried to bring that to Japan. It didn't go well. We had a system, we had a website. Just failed to have enough local Japanese people kind of join the service.
Was this a cultural difference?
I don't know, probably lack of knowledge how to do sales, lack of funds how to kind of really push it, because we didn't actually spend a lot of money on promoting that on the internet. But also when we had to start that, so we had to kind of translate some jokes, some memes into Japanese just to show how it works. And it probably didn't go well because our sense of humor is kind of different. Though I kind of could speak Japanese, and I've spent by that time a couple years already in Japan, it was still not enough to kind of do that part, to kind of understand the humor deeply enough so that it could work. After that, we did online pet cemetery.
A pet cemetery.
Yeah. So the idea was that more and more people have pets, and if you live in a big city, when something happens to your pet, when your dog dies, then it's difficult to kind of have a special kind of place, like a grave or something. And
is it costly, or is it just not available?
It is not available, but also costly, and it costs a lot. So a lot of people would just go to kind of local government, and they would just dispose it for some amount of money. So we thought, okay, let's provide people some place online where they could kind of remember their pet, have online grave,
like a shrine, a little bit for their own pet.
And we spent a lot of time on that. Again, we learned how to do 3D modeling. We kind of rendered a lot of locations. We actually were able to have a product. It was based on the kind of so-called Silverlight technology. It's now discontinued by Microsoft. Back then it was the thing. so I could zoom out to location. It was really kind of nice.
So it was all an online 3D kind of park, or park or country where people could choose a place and like, oh, we're gonna put the grave of our dog here, and like you had a 3D model of what it would look like with details. And
yes, it was like that. But then again, we were able to build a product, but we knew nothing about like sales. So we also had like 4 or 5 paid users, but that was obviously not enough to kind of run a project.
Yes.
And again, like design wise, the way this location looked, the way service was done, UI UX design, was everything was made kind of we had our own understanding what looks fine, but in Japan probably like they have different kind of expectation of these kind of products. So I guess again we try to introduce something to Japan, but this part is hard. It's like translation. Like for example, if you think about translation, it's better like could it translate things to your own language, borrow something or take something from abroad and then translate into your language, rather than to translate to language you're not that confident in. Like if you see, for example, a book translation, usually someone who's native in that language does that.
So now the first 3 kind of businesses you've tried to start in Japan were all about bringing in a foreign idea into Japan.
Yes.
And all 3 faced a similar challenge of cultural adaptation and communication maybe with a local market.
Yes, if you think about that in this way, it's true. Everything was about like adaptation and bringing things.
So how did you take those learnings into then starting Zen Market, which now became ZenGroup?
Yeah, so we tried to do the opposite. So we failed 3 times, and I was about to graduate from university, and we spent quite a lot of time and resources on previous 3 projects. So we couldn't fail. Like we thought of what could be done differently. So probably like this time we decided to play safe and do the opposite. So bring something Japanese into like our own culture. And yeah, so selling Japanese products, selling Japanese items to Ukraine or like other foreign culture made
that was
more
the birth
sense. Yeah.
of Zen Market.
Yeah.
How did it start? Where did it start? I imagine you didn't suddenly have an office or people that worked with you.
Yeah.
Who decided to join together to let's start this project, and like where?
Yeah, so it was kind of like on a surface. We considered a couple of business ideas, but like as a foreigner, you always like, I mean, your relatives or probably friends sometimes ask you to bring some things from Japan.
Yes. Kit
Kats, I don't know, like, some electric appliances or whatever. Like, Japan was really famous for like stuff. So we also considered to do something like related to kind of tourism. But finally decided, okay, it's gonna be this buying proxy service, and so we started. Normally you would get idea, you would get investments, and yeah, that's probably the proper way to start it. But
yes,
we were students, and no one would ever consider give us any investments back in Japan back then. And we're starting in Kansai. Like it might be easier in Tokyo, but in Kansai that was not the thing. So we had to chip in like really some small amount, and we started in like basically in an apartment.
Okay.
Yeah. So
At
I'm
home?
one of the co-owners. I had some like my friends, co-founders. So we started in apartment of one of the co-founder, and like lasted for about 3 or 4 months while we were there. And then we finally understood that doing business in apartment does not work well for us.
Okay, I can imagine a lot of people in a small place, a lot of computers running, and no space to store the goods that you're shipping overseas.
Yeah, we had a small room emptied, and we stored it there, and we didn't have a lot of boxes back then, so it was fine. Well, general atmosphere, you just come with your PC, and it's just like a student apartment. And it's not just online business, it's just you have to deal with different shipping companies. other companies, and so naturally they would come to your office, meet you, and we had this, I guess it was it DHL, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So we applied for like account because we wanted to ship as DHL, and we had like 2 salesperson coming to us
in suit and tie.
Yeah, suit and tie, like looking very, very, just a business person. And we're like, like t-shirts or something like normal, like the apartment, like student apartment was like, some alcohol, some, like shisha or something like that. And they were a bit, I don't know. Confused probably, yeah. Well, they didn't show it, but, they sit on the sofa because we didn't have like a table, chair, like normal. And we talked some business, like signing a contract or something. But
did you get the contract?
I guess so, yeah. But soon after that, we understood that, we should try to kind of upscale it a bit. So we spent a bit more than we could afford just to have a tiny office in Nishinakajima.
In Osaka.
It was close actually to apartment, but that was completely different thing once you're in an office environment and trying to do things properly. Yeah.
Feels more real. It's like
we
have a business and you're running this.
We have a business and now we have a rent to pay.
Yes.
So there's no way back.
And so the company started with the four founders,
yep.
And you have been maybe friends before already. And what were some of the challenges when you were in the first few months or the first year of starting the company?
So a lot of them actually. So like
you mentioned, for example, investments, and that it was very difficult to get. Was it something to do also being a foreigner starting a business in Japan? Or is it just generally maybe difficult for a new business that doesn't yet have maybe a proof of concept or sales to kind of really get any serious investments?
Yeah, actually like both, I guess. So we're students, we start new business, we don't have enough funds, money, we don't have enough knowledge actually to run it, because if you think about it, we almost none. I mean, Andrei had a bit and Rita had a bit, but like I've never worked in a company before I graduated like full time. So we didn't have like that experience how it should be run properly. So
making everything from scratch.
I'm making everything from scratch in a good and bad way as well. So doing a lot of mistakes, but also maybe sometimes like reinventing things because we just didn't know how it should be. So we kind of had to come up with our own way of doing things. But like first 6 months were especially hard because we were hoping that, okay, once we have a website, we start a business, it goes, well, we're going to have at least like this many parcel and that will be enough to kind of pay rent and have some, basic income. But that was not the case.
So the first 6 months go by and sales are not coming in.
Yeah, not coming in. And so we have to change some things. One of them was like an add-in auction to a website and then making our commission flat to make it run. It worked. So I guess
a big change to the business model from just being a proxy to actually introducing one of the major websites in Japan to your proxy service, Yahoo Auction, and having a new business model with a flat rate. Why did you choose that?
So again, when we were thinking about buying proxy, we wanted to do it a bit differently. So we wanted not to have like auction related things. We wanted just to have, let's just sell new items from Japanese online stores. That should be enough. But obviously, people need used stuff. A lot of our customers still gonna buy a lot of reused, like pre-owned stuff. So we had to kind of acknowledge that. We had to just provide our customers what they needed, and that kind of changed a lot of things. Also, we added a lot of new language versions.
Okay.
We had to compete with other companies. So one of the way we decided we do it, it was kind of expanding to markets that are still not occupied. And a lot of our competitors would do English and Chinese language.
The main ones.
Yeah, the main ones. So yeah, we did English and Chinese, but we also soon started thinking about some additional one like French, German, etc. So
very early on, this idea of kind of focusing on all the different language markets was the strategy from ZenMarket.
Yeah, it was. One of our I guess, strengths is that. But going back to your question, we also kind of had, in Japan, when you have like investor visa, it's basically not very good to have like negative numbers.
Yes, you need to show profit.
You need to show profit to be sure that you're gonna get your visa renewed. So that was one of the things that made us. It made us. We had to be profitable.
So you had to think about a model that we can make money this year, so we can keep our visas. Otherwise, we are out of here.
Yes. I mean, there's this concept of Zebra company. You know that? Like there are a lot of rumors, a lot of people talking about unicorns. When you get investment, you bootstrap, you scale up, and then like in a couple of years, you're worth $1 billion or something. And that is probably like good way to kind of expand your company.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but just we didn't have that resources, so we had to kind of go step by step. We had to be profitable each year, so we could not invest a lot of money and then just be negative like for a couple of years in a row, and then after that show profit, which would probably be better because we could scale up faster. But anyway, we have what we have, so we had to do it step by step. And the analogy with Zebra companies, like you have good things, you have bad things, and unlike unicorns, which are kind of like rare animals, you cannot see them every day. Life, zebra, never. Yeah, zebra is pretty kind of like down to earth animal. There are a lot of them. Reliable. So yeah, if we use that analogy, I guess we probably close it to zebra, at least if you see it, our growth. There were some years when we kind of grew about like 75%, especially when Corona happened. But basically it's just 30-40% per year, like stable growth.
So in those first years when you had those challenges of no sale, the big change was to kind of adjust the business model with a flat rate, adding Yahoo auctions. And then I imagine sales started coming in. And how did you do with the space? Because even though you rented an office now in Nishinakajima, if more and more parcels will come in, you'd need people to handle the parcels. You need to store them somewhere. Yeah. How did you get the first warehouse, perhaps?
Yeah, so before we talked about space, and going back to your previous question, so we did a lot of languages as one of our strengths, but also made our commission flat. And there was also one more thing, is like we tried to make our service like super intuitive and simple. Okay. I mean, it's one of the name of the Zen market, like something like really cool and simple. So we saw that a lot of our competitors would have really complicated, hard to understand system of like they would charge for different small things. So we tried to abolish all of the charges and made the interface as simple as it could be for the buying proxy, which is not still kind of close to kind of normal shopping experience, but still like we did what we could. And another strength is kind of diversity. So since we're dealing people from different countries speaking different language, we soon understood that, for example, like having one shipping message is not enough. So one of our approach is to provide our customers variety of shipping methods, variety of payment methods. We have more than 100, which would match the needs of a kind of local people. And going back to the space, we had a small room, a small office, and this was used also as a warehouse. So we would have a desk in this part, and we would store items in another part. And sometimes you would deal rather long items, like for example, like fishing rods. There's some fishing rods that are like 2 meters or something.
It takes a lot of space.
It takes a lot of space.
A big washing machine.
Yeah, luckily we didn't have a washing machine. We were afraid of, but like no one back at that time bought something like a washing machine. But we had some rather bulky items, and we had it was pretty difficult to put them in because it was not warehouse. It was like normal room in the second one was not an apartment. It was just office room, but it was office room in a small office building, and it was not warehouse, so the entrance was small. So like putting like 2 or 3 meters long fishing rods through these doors, it was kind of
the
like
angle around the corner.
It was a bit difficult.
And so then you kind of moved to get your first warehouse somewhere here in Osaka.
Yeah, we had a warehouse in Suita. We still have that building. So again, it was a pretty ambitious decision because when we moved inside, there's all the stuff, it's all the desks, and it was all the like items. It was 3-story building, and we just took like 1/4 of one floor or something.
Very little space for a big
Yeah, the
building.
place felt really empty, and so when we met the first person who came as a part-timer, and we interviewed that person. I guess it looked like really weird for that person because we just moved in, everything was messy, but the place was pretty much empty. Like the second and third floor was like really empty. So after interview, we were sure that she will never come back again. But somehow she showed up next day. Yeah.
Was it the first employee?
A first part-time employee. Yeah.
And then you had the warehouse, you had the first employee. Was this the moment where you really started feeling, oh, we made it, we have a company, it's growing, it's running? Or was there something else that made you kind of feel like the company is now a real entity?
Well, it was step by step. I'm not sure like there was like real moment. Probably when we kind of rented our first office in Nakajima, it felt real. And the moment you see that you have to pay a certain amount of a rental each month, and you have no way out, it kind of makes things real.
You have to make it work somehow.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole process, you'd been many years in Japan already before, and you studied Japanese. But has Japanese language ever been an issue or a challenge in terms of making partners with shipping companies, making partners with potential suppliers, or negotiating the lease for the apartment or the office or the warehouse?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure you can do business in Japan without knowing Japanese language. Probably you could in Tokyo, I'm not sure. But back then, we didn't have money or resources to ask a lawyer to do things for us. So we had to do basically everything by ourselves, to prepare all the documents to to start a company. And then getting different permissions and like dealing different authorities.
Understanding the contract.
Understanding the contracts, signing things that require Japanese language. And it's not like even N2, you have to read a lot of kanji. Has to be
complex
N1.
Japanese, yes.
Yeah.
Was this a moment where being 4 co-founders all speaking Japanese was like a strength to kind of help each other out through these times and push each other to move forward?
Well, in terms of like Japanese language, I mean, we're pretty much probably on the same level. So it was okay. But yeah, I mean, it's Japan, so sometimes they would ask you, do you have like Japanese person in the company? So it's not just about like being able to speak Japanese. It's also like having a real Japanese person in the company.
Trustworthiness question?
That thing. It took us like 3 or 4 years to get our first loan in Japanese bank. So probably like took a bit longer than it would took for the local people to do it, but I'm not sure.
If you think about the business and the need for profitability, getting a first loan after 3-4 years is quite a long time in business years.
Oh, that's a normal practice for Japan. They would ask you their statement for the last 3 years.
Okay.
So probably that was a thing. They would we were just waiting to get there to have like 3-year statement and show it's profitable. And only at this point, they would be ready to kind of consider giving you a loan.
I see. And now that the company has grown considerably since then and renamed and added hundreds of employees, how about any special hopes or dreams that you have now for the company kind of moving forward?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, when we started the company, a lot of people would say, okay, we have this kind of like vision for the future. It's going to be like this, and it was the same back then, and now that 10 years passed, it's the same. It would be differently in our case. I mean, we had an idea how it should be. We had some like idea of like our mission or vision, but we're just the students, and it's a bit different right now. And like running also a company is like, at least if I use this analogy, it's like, you're trying to remake or rebuild a train which is running all the way.
To hang outside the door,
adjusting
the wheels.
You cannot stop it, like redo the whole thing and start it over.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically running fast, and you have to change things. So right now it's pretty different from what it was like 9 years ago. Right now we are aiming to make an ecosystem that would help us to help other Japanese companies to sell easier their products in the world, because there are a lot of like so-called walls, like there's like language wall, like shipping, some other regulations. So we have this ZenPop, ZenPlus, and ZenMarket. We have some experience running it for 9 years. Now I think we are ready. We're at this stage that we can kind of share our experience with other Japanese companies, or either provide them some like marketing services, or provide them some logistics, something else that would help them to sell Japanese products in the world. Because overall, if you think the data, if you check the cross-border EC, and you see how many people purchase from other countries online, only like 5% of people purchasing online purchase things from Japan.
Okay.
While like like Germany or like UK has like 15%, 20% share. And I feel like there's kind of like
a lot of potential
for Japan to grow more. So we're trying to kind of
help to bridge the gap between all these language barriers and cultural norms that basically you faced when you started your first business ideas here, and now nearly 10 years later, you kind of gathered all this experience and you're able to provide solutions for all the other companies that are facing the challenges you had before.
Yes, at the moment, this is our mission. This is what we are kind of aiming for.
And the company is making a lot of steps towards this. So maybe it would be very interesting to have you back on the podcast to discuss more the kind of more advanced business development that you're maybe now facing here in Japan. But from all your experience in starting and growing the companies and overcoming those initial challenges, is there perhaps something that you would like to share that I didn't ask or forgot to ask in the...
a lot of tons of things we kind of learned through our experience running a company, made tons of mistakes, probably would do a lot of things differently now that we had to redo it, we had the chance to redo it. But overall, it was kind of really fun. So maybe like next time when we talk about like do and don'ts, or I don't know, like doing business in Japan, I'd be ready to kind of share more things.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for your time and like sharing so much about how you started with your co-founders, ZenMarket, which is now ZenGroup. And before we wrap up, Andrew prepared a few questions for us about businesses in Japan. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
At the end of each episode, we have this trivia segment, and there will be 3 questions, and an answer to each of them will be a number. If you don't know, you can guess. Who gets the closest will sort of win. Nothing, unfortunately, but yeah.
For now.
For now, yes, maybe in the future we will do that. And traditionally, the expert, so Slava, will go first.
I would not call myself an expert, but okay.
Okay, let's try the first one. How many foreign nationals live in Japan on investor/business manager visa?
That's a good question. I actually 6 months ago, I saw that data.
Oh,
okay.
I saw that data. I also was kind of... I also saw that there are also Ukrainians that had this visa.
Oh.
I was thinking it was just me and like my partners, but there were also like a couple more. And I was really amazed. Yeah.
Let's write it down.
It was like, okay, overall, I would say a couple thousands.
Yeah.
Like maybe 6,000 or something, 6,000.
Okay.
I have 5,000.
5,000.
Okay, it's okay. I'll do 4. Okay, let's do 4. 4 or 5.
Okay, there was a research, and according to that research, in 2021 there were 27,000.
20,000.
Oh,
Okay, that was more.
27,000.
27,000 foreigners starting business. That's pretty good.
Running businesses, not only
Running
starting,
business,
it's
okay.
being on that visa, so probably like business management
Okay.
or managing their own business or other people's businesses. Okay, question number 2. What was the total value of export from Japan in 2021? That's the most recent data that I could
The
find.
total value of
Export.
export. In
So
yen.
Japanese. Let's talk USD.
Okay.
So we talk like the whole export, not just like EC or Samsung.
Everything.
Everything.
Yes. What would be your best estimation? I can give you a hint. It's in billions of USD.
Be honest, sure.
I don't know if I'm saying.
I would like go for 400 billion. I mean, it's too much. Let's do 200 billion.
Okay.
I'll say 60 billion.
60 billion. Okay. It's in 2021. It was 910 billion USD.
Whoa. 900,
Nearly
okay.
a trillion.
Nearly a trillion.
Wow.
It's third, I think, in the world after US and China, if I'm not mistaken.
For now, yeah.
Okay, last question. In what year was the Tokyo Stock Exchange established?
Very good one.
What would be your best estimation?
I will guess this, but I'm probably wrong.
It's actually the biggest stock exchange, I think, if I'm not mistaken, by listed companies or something like
The
that.
number of listed companies.
Yeah. Again, I'm not into business that much.
That's
So.
a good question. 19 something, 19, no,
I would say
10 or something, 1910.
1910?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would say maybe in the current form in 1941.
49
49, sorry.
49, like after the war.
Yes,
like in the
49
corner.
after the war. 1878.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very old one.
Much longer than we thought.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that's all from
Thank
me.
you for your
Trivia
questions.
questions.
Thank you
Yeah,
again
thank
for
you.
your time
Yeah,
today.
thank you for
This
inviting
was,
me.
Yes, thank you very much. This was Fish and Rice Stories from Japan. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week with a new episode. Bye.
Bye.